Or talk to us about, can an ICO just be a financing vehicle, or is it strictly the domain of companies that are building something related to the blockchain? So you had a great company and wanted to avoid venture capitalists. Could you do an ICO, or does it have to directly be linked, does the capital raise have to be directly linked to innovation around the blockchain?
That's really what an ICO is something linked to a blockchain, because it is a token giving customers the right to use the product once it's completed in the future. So it's a way to raise money from your customers rather than
a Kickstarter thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really a new channel that historically people raise money by selling ownership that we call equity, or maybe from borrowing it from a bank, which we would call debt. But this is not debt, it's not equity, it's a new type of financing where your customers invest, and if the value of being a customer goes up, they will profit as well. But it's really the utility of using the token to access whatever the service is that is the source of the value. It's not a dividend or an interest payment or even a capital gain necessarily.
No ownership, no governance, nothing like that.
Yeah, you know, the definition of a security from an economist is you get cash flow rights, like dividends, and you get governance rights, which is typically voting. And you don't get either of these with a token.
Why wouldn't Tesla do this? Instead of taking cash up front, why wouldn't Tesla have a coin that says, for this coin, this is the Tesla Model 3 coin?
I wouldn't rule it out, and you do see business models where people pre-sell their product before something is built. So cruise ships will sell tickets to the cruise before the boat is launched. Football stadiums are built this way all the time, where personal seat licenses are sold before the stadium is constructed. And you're tapping into your customer base as a source of finance in exchange for them getting the gain if the experience of being a customer turns out to be more valuable than people expected. So, you know, why doesn't Tesla do this is kind of a good question for Elon Musk.
But that's not related to the blockchain. That's just a financing vehicle. So you do think we'll see coins that aren't directly related to building out the blockchain?
The blockchain is where these things are hosted and traded. And I think
that's the exchange.
Yeah, one thing that you need is some controlled scarcity. So most of these tokens are created by way of smart contract, where you can make a credible position or credible commitment through the software that you won't create more tokens and dilute the ones that are already out there. So in terms of a football stadium, you don't want more personal seat licenses than there are seats. And in terms, if Tesla were to do this, they'd need to make some commitment that there wouldn't be more Tesla coins than cars. And one way to do that, in fact, is to host them on a blockchain where the issuance protocol is very transparent. And so if they actually tried to dilute the market, you would be able to see it happening and complain.
But what additional guarantees? I serve on public company boards. We can issue additional stock with the board approval, and granted the stock might go down because an analyst will say this, or your stock's about to become diluted. But why do coins necessarily, is it a trust thing to come out of the gates and say we're going to tie this to some sort of finite or limiting mechanism? Because you can issue more stock, a company can issue more stock.
It's not so easy with these tokens because they are in the form of smart contracts. And what this is a computer program that contains all the constraints and variables. And one of the things that appears in every token smart contract is a limit on how many there could ever be. Now, you might get clever and say, you know, there can only be 1 million of these tokens, but then I'm going to create
a new token.
Alpha token, Beta token.
Model X token.
And this meant to be a perfect substitute, and we'll create another. And would they really be valued in the market? Would they give access to the same platform and replicate the first token? I'm not so sure that they would. So the scalability and replication of tokens, you really haven't seen anybody try this yet because these platforms are all years into the future. But it is often remarked that the governance of these things and the enforcement of the smart contract terms may end up to be the weakness, the Achilles heel, if people can do as you conjectured. We'll have to see if there are shady people and companies that are able to program around the constraints in the smart contracts. You do see this in the debt markets where there's covenants against future borrowing, but people find ways around it by, you know, issuing new debt of more junior grade or whatever.
Pulling secured debt.
So this was a longer than I would like it to go, but it's really important you understand this. So obviously it's great that we have smart contracts and they try to put a limit on how much can be issued, because obviously if you can continue to create more and more tokens, you're no different than the Federal Reserve or a central bank. You can just keep printing it out, and that's one reason why Bitcoin is so attractive. Is that there's only a certain amount. There's 17 million right now, and it's only going to go up to 21 million, and then there's no more Bitcoin. But like I said, there's ways around it. I mean, people could just create another currency called Bitcoin Cash, or some people like to call it Bitcoin Trash. And so, like I said, I think the most important thing is reputation and the team, because obviously the people that are on this team and the reputation they carry is worth a lot of money. So if it's an unknown team and the people don't really have to care about their reputation, and a good example of this is BitConnect. The people that own BitConnect were very under the radar. Obviously they had the promoters and the clowns, the Trevon James and stuff like that, but for the most part, if they're not transparent and they don't have a good track record, be careful. But if they have a good track record and they have a pretty large reputation, I don't see them creating a scam coin or going around where like, hey, this is the limit of how many coins we're going to issue, but you know what, we'll just create a fork, or we'll create like because there's always loopholes to get around, so you're not protected. And it's just the best thing you can do is work with people that have a good reputation, because their reputation sometimes is worth more than scamming people. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you soon.